So, I was minding my own business, as I always do, obviously, playing Warframe. Doing my Railjack missions, they're really fun. Finish my 8 weekly ones. And next, we're gonna have to do some Lua shit. I don't even know, 4 of them. Anyways. While I was playing, came across, as you always do on YouTube, um, a video that I found very interesting because, well, first of all, it reinforces everything that I've been saying about the problem with PoE2. Not everything, but I think a vast majority of things. And it goes over like why PoE1 has like no one is playing PoE1. I mean, like, not since PoE2 came out, just like literally no one ever plays PoE1, right? You have like 10k players every new season, like you get like the 100, 150,000, and then just drops like 10k within, a month or something like that. And again, because it's seasonal, whatever, but it's like, it just goes to show that people are not enjoying the end game except for a select few. And honestly, these select few probably are gonna keep playing no matter what. They're still gonna have their end game there at like, at the end of the end game, it would still be there. But the people who are coming in every season, the people who are enjoying, the vast majority of the people who are enjoying the campaign, the progress of the character, those people, this game is not for them. Clearly, because once the campaign is over, people either start the campaign again or they quit. Because why? Because maps are fucking boring. They're boring in PoE1, they're boring in PoE2. To force the players to do so many maps to get to any point of progression is fucking stupid. It's like, oh, well, but that's what ARPG games are about. Stop with that stupid mentality. This is the same mentality that EverQuest players had when World of Warcraft comes out. Well, it is about punishment, it is about dying and losing a level or two. No, that's not what it is about. It's a freaking game, okay? It's supposed to be enjoyable. It's supposed to be fun. Maps are not fun for based on what it looks like, over 90% of the player base do not find maps fun. Stop thinking that maps are fun. You are statistically wrong. Anyways, let's get on to the video. We'll break it down to parts as we go. So there will be a lot of cuts. But yeah, let's get into it.
Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about the Path of Exile 2 campaign versus the late game maps. Like many of you, I very much enjoyed the campaign. I think my exact quote was, they might as well cease the development of any other ARPG that wasn't Path of Exile 2 because Path of Exile 2 was just so unbelievably much better that there was just no point to developing anything else at the time. Since then, I retract that statement. Path of Exile 2 late game is basically any other ARPG late game, not very notable at all, and is actually kind of forgettable in the grand scheme of things.
Now before you say it's like, well, it's early access, it's everything subject to change, PoE2 endgame is going to be, based on the interview for the patch, the goal is literally to make PoE1 endgame.
Let's move on here to this video because I say a lot of things that I very much disagree with. Well, actually, before I even go there, let's I'm going to show you some gameplay footage real quick. I quickly went to one of the popular streams of someone playing Path of Exile 2. This is after a bunch of the changes they've done and after people have figured out builds. This is at 2x speed, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm just doing that so you can see it quicker. This is what the campaign and this is what the ender of the game starts to look like. As you start reaching maps and you start finishing up the campaign, this is what it looks like. Does this look like the campaign that you enjoyed? Does this look like the gameplay that you enjoyed? Does this look like the sort of things that you would play for long periods of times? Me, personally, no. If this is how the campaign was, if there wasn't this weird bait and switch, I probably would have stopped playing a long time ago. I don't really
100% agree. That is just not fun. It is fun for like a day, maybe, like, oh, cool, I can blow things up, like a fucking retard. But that is not fucking fun, okay? Just clicking a right click every so often to blow the whole screen up is fucking stupid. It is not interesting. I don't know how many times I have to say it. It's like, oh, well, just get a good build. They all do the same thing. It doesn't matter. Like, it's so stupid. And like when people say it's, and honestly, to an extent, I don't even really agree with him, because the campaign, on the second or third time you do it, pretty much turns into this as well. The campaign needs readjusting. The abilities need so much readjusting. Everything needs readjusting. He talks about this later, how the campaign, once you understand the game, the campaign is also a fucking joke. Okay? This whole game is right now a fucking joke. Let's keep going.
I like this sort of gameplay. And I just want to show that to people, because this very much is how the game is going to play in maps. This is very much how the game is going to play in late game, and the devs want and intend this. How do I know they want and intend this to be the sort of gameplay that you're using? Well, let's look right here. Darth Microtransactions asks a question.
The game does take a bit of a turn suddenly when you get to endgame. Of like, it doesn't really feel like it. It really does feel very different. From campaign to endgame, and yeah, as I said, it's just a matter of sort of easing that transition, making that a little bit better, and smoothing out that more for sure.
I want to hone into 2 points here, because you talk about it feels like a different game, sort of a different sense of progression, at least. We have to go from campaign into action. This is a question we're going to ask later, but it seems a good time to ask it now. Like is that intended, and do you like that as a design principle? Because I've seen people say that they really like the campaign, and me myself, I like the difference, but I've seen people state that they really enjoy the campaign pacing, then they get to maps and they feel like it starts blasting, it's almost a different game at that point. So I think the audience would love to know how you feel about that difference.
Yeah. And this is something very important to ask, and this is a question that I think more people should be talking about. He asked very directly, is this what you intend with the late game? Is this what you want in the late game? Is this your intended gameplay? Is this not a balance oversight, but instead, is this what you want people to be doing? Because again, I see people on Reddit, on Twitter, on Bluesky, on all these websites, they keep saying, well, the devs, they didn't intend this. They'll fix it. They'll change it, right? But they won't. This is what they want. Okay, and I just want to emphasize that, because they very much do answer exactly as you think. The devs will answer this question. Is this what you want? And I have a whole list of problems with this, but I just want to get this baseline clarified so people can understand where I'm coming from, and not go down to the comments and say, well, it's early access, the end game isn't in balance, they rushed it together. I want to give feedback to this, that I do not like this, and I think the vast majority of people do not like this, but we need to set a base floor that we need to change the developer's opinion.
You do actually, I mean, you do need to get to the point at some point where you feel incredibly powerful.
I'm going to keep cutting this off to add something here, though. I find the developer opinion that you need to get to the point where you feel powerful very off-putting, weird, bad even.
Do you feel powerful in Elden Ring, for example? At some point. Probably yes. You can still die very easily. You're still not wiping the whole screen. It's not like you run up to a camp and just like spit on them and they blow up. Okay? Now again, yes, very different game, but you can feel very powerful and not need to just blow everything up. You know? That being said, the ability to blow everything up should maybe, I'll agree that it is something to work towards, but that needs to come at the end of the end game. And I said this multiple times over multiple videos. End of the end game. You beat the pinnacle bosses. They dropped specific uniques that create this ability to just chain react a fucking nuclear explosion on the map. Yes, you beat the game. Do whatever the fuck you want. Stop doing it. Stop making it possible to become this god mode before you beat the freaking game. Campaign is not beating the game. Campaign is just unless that is the intention. And then, yeah, sure. Okay, so you want people to play the campaign and not play the end game. You just design end game for basically like 5% of your player base. Just say it. Say that then. Fuck.
Concerning that they keep talking about this player strength when I actually feel like I get weaker and weaker and weaker the further into the late game I become. In fact, once I start juicing maps and I start going into delirium and things like that, I don't feel stronger. I just start feeling weaker and weaker and weaker as time goes on. Now that's because of a lot of their balancing issues. Enemy health barely moves, whereas their damage starts doubling, then tripling, then quadrupling, which I will get into later. But a bigger issue is, I'm going to call it the Kamehameha effect. Okay. Now, when I'm going to use a Dragon Ball Z example here, and hopefully you guys can understand this. When Goku was fighting Vegeta, he shot a Kamehameha. A big beam came out and it shot out of the planet. Okay. When Goku was fighting Frieza, he shot a Kamehameha and a big beam came out and it shot out of the planet. But at this point, Goku was 300,000 power level versus the 10 to 8,000 he was on fighting Vegeta. I don't remember what it was. So it would have been 300,000 with the Kaioken times 20. So do the math on that one. Then when Goku got Super Saiyan and shot his Kamehameha at Frieza, he was 3 million power with Super Saiyan being a 50 times multiplier. So do the math on that one. Then when Goku was fighting Cell, he did a Kamehameha. And now this one was an instant transmission Kamehameha, but it still shot out of the planet. And do you get where I'm going with this? They're all the same thing. It's all just a Kamehameha. It doesn't matter what number you put on it. It's all just a Kamehameha. It doesn't matter if I'm AoEing 1 enemy, 2 enemies, 20 enemies, 50 enemies. If I'm fighting a breach and I'm starting to literally kill like 20 to 30 breach enemies every time I swing my hammer, all I'm doing is swinging my hammer. I'm just swinging the
I think I talked about this in the last one or the video before when I talked about PoE, that it's like once you're AoEing everything down, you're just AoEing everything down. Like it's like if I'm blowing everything up in T1s and I feel like my build is done, I don't care about like continuing. My build is not going to evolve. The only thing that will happen is I might need to get slowed down because the HP would increase, which doesn't really happen in PoE2, but the HP would increase, so I would just need more damage. But in terms of like my build, it is the same shit. It doesn't evolve. It reached the peak. Like that's it. This is what I have to look forward to. I'm level 50. I'm blowing everything up, and for the next 50 levels, 100 hours. 100 hours of leveling because like XP slowed down. This is exactly all I will be doing. Boring. Fucking boring. Let's keep going.
10 enemies explode at the end of the campaign. 20 enemies explode when I get to the map. 30 enemies explode when I get to a breach. I don't feel more powerful. In fact, quite the opposite. I feel like my enemies are just becoming pathetic and weak. They're not getting strong. They're getting more and more pathetic as time goes on. I'm going to call this Diablo 1. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. What do you fight at the beginning of the game? Skeletons, zombies. What do you fight in the middle of the game? You start fighting some demons. What do you fight at the end of the game? I think it's called the Blood Knight. I'm going to Google this really quick.
Yeah, Blood Knight.
The Blood Knight, Diablo 1, what was it called? Blood Knight. You start fighting the Blood Knight at the end of the game. And you feel progression. You feel more powerful. Why? Because the Blood Knight can kick your ass. He can beat you. You don't just AoE 100 Blood Knights. You're not going from AoEing 10 zombies to 10 skeletons to 10 goblins to 10 demons to 10 Blood Knights. By the time you get to the Blood Knight is very, very, very powerful. And it takes a lot to overcome the Blood Knight. Do you get that? But in Path of Exile 2, I never feel like I'm getting more powerful. I'm just AoEing enemies. Now, there are lots of enemy types in the game, to be clear. Delirium has unique ones. Breach has so many unique ones. Breach is, if you actually could pay attention, if you stopped AoEing 30 enemies a second in Breach, you would notice that they have like 20 different types of enemies or something. It's like a lot. They also have bosses, mini bosses. It's actually kind of nutty in that one. So Delirium has unique ones. Breach has unique ones. Expeditions has a lot of different unique ones. There's all these different unique enemy types in the game. but you just AoE them all the same. What's the difference between AoEing zombies at the start of the game and AoEing the breach monsters at the end? Are you telling me the breach monsters are only as powerful as zombies? This is the big, great, world-ending terror? A bunch of enemies I can just easily AoE. I swing my hammer and they all go, he's so powerful, I'm dead now.
However, I would say that there is like a bit of a switch flip.
So to that point, yeah, that's exactly it. And like as he said, it's like, yeah, if you slow down, you might see that they are different monsters, but you don't care because all you do is the same exact thing. There's no gameplay here. There's nothing for you to like solve. Like you solved the problem 20 levels ago, and now that problem that you solved is fixing the whole game for you. So it's like, it's just such a boring concept of like, well, just get to an AoE build as soon as possible and face absolutely no problems, right? It's like, well, the pinnacle bosses are gonna be different. You're gonna... Great. Thanks. What am I doing 99% of my time? Pinnacle bosses? Am I doing bosses at all? I'm using the same build 99% of the time to try and reach for that 1% of gameplay that is the pinnacle bosses. Like, fuck off. This is such a, like... No one is, like... Well, I mean, yes. The PoE endies who keep playing the game for the last 12 years and this is the only game that they play, they will do it. Sure. Normal players will not bother doing 99% of their time spending on maps that are completely fucking useless for maybe get the currency to buy something if you're in Trade League, or maybe get the currency to maybe gamble on an item that might be a 1% up. No one is gonna do that. No normal player, no casual regular player is gonna bother with any of that shit. And I'm not saying make it easy. I'm not saying make it more accessible. I'm saying like the gameplay itself needs improvement for people to be willing to go through that nuisance of trying to get that 1% build. Trying to outsmart the AI that is, yes, it is built to be beaten, but it's like something. You need to give them something, not just right-clicking their way to dementia. Oh my god, I don't understand why they're so, like, why even develop PoE 2? I just don't understand the goal of PoE 2 if you're just making PoE 1 again. It is so frustrating. Let's move on.
Right now that's kind of not quite right. Like there's definitely something that ain't right going on there.
Well, there's two. There is the character power side. I mean, a lot of people are getting to endgame. Excuse me. A lot of people are getting to endgame and they aren't just becoming gods all of a sudden, right? A lot of people are struggling and falling off and can't sustain maps and are dying and it's not like you.
Can we talk about the sustaining maps, by the way? The problem with sustaining maps is if you ever die, you can't sustain maps. But I'm actually going to explain this to them really quick. Like, if any developer is ever watching this, let me explain why these maps, why do the developers have no issues sustaining maps, and then why do the players get issues sustaining maps? Let's take the boss map, for example. You go into the boss, there's one map. You kill the boss. So we were up 2 maps, right? So we're down 1 map, we get 2 maps. We're up 1 map by going to the boss. Okay, +1 by going to a boss. Sometimes you get 3, 4, 5 within it. Depending on how much you've juiced the map. Typically you get 3, I think by the end, you get like 3 automatically. So let's say by the end of the game, once you're at tier 15s and your maps...
Which, by the way, got nerfed, so you're gonna get less maps now from bosses, but yeah.
Juice and you're getting lots of waystones and all that. You go in, you're -1. You get 3 from the boss, you're +3. You typically get 1 from the map itself. You're +4, -1.
I had plenty of maps where I didn't get even 1 map back, but yeah.
So you're up 3
of the same level. Yeah, if I do like a tier 7, I might get like a tier 1 or 2, but like I don't count those. I don't need those.
Maps by going to a boss map. Easy to sustain going along and along and along, right? Okay, let's say you're bad at the game. You haven't been playing ARPGs for 30 years. You haven't min-maxed the build because you're the developer of the game and you understand how to play your own game. In that situation, you put a map in. You die.
Done.
You put a second map in. Now you're down 1 map, but actually you're not down 1 map, you're down 4 maps because you didn't get the 3 from the boss. You didn't get the 1 from the map itself because you died and had to put in a second map.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't even get a map from the boss. So the problem is map sustain is directly attributed to how overpowered your build is.
Which, by the way, this brings into the whole point of like, well, we don't want people to like take advantage of the maps by like, you know, doing the boss, dying, and then, you know, repeating and being able to do the boss again. Just make the boss the condition to beat the map. It's like, well, we don't want them to do delirium and then like finish the delirium, die, and reset the map and do delirium again. Make the delirium the reset condition for the map. It's not hard. Or once you're done with that content, then remove that from the map instead of like removing everything when you die. It's like he did the delirium, or like even if you failed the delirium, you started delirium, you failed it, you died. Okay, cool. Delirium is removed from the map. The boss and the breach is still there. So it's like the map is not completely shat on, okay? Obviously, like the more tries, whatever, but I'm just saying that it's like having the condition to always be rares is so fucking stupid.
Your build is very overpowered, then you can sustain maps easy. And I just want to say that it's like a bit of a non sequitur. I promise you guys I have a whole ass list of complaints I'm going to go over, but I want to go over this video first.
You get to end game and all of a sudden you're ultra powerful. But you certainly
I'm gonna divide this video into parts. We're gonna do the part where he talks about this, and then we're gonna do the part where he talks about his list.
People are getting to end game and then are just lost as to what to do, right? Like a lot of players really like to be told exactly, here's what you do, here's what you do, here's what you do, here's your next.
I think the game does that enough. It's like, hey, go beat 10 maps. It does nothing to explain how maps work, how juicing maps work, and all that stuff. That part they need to like bring a little tutorial of like, you know, you talk to Doriani, he gives you the, you know, the green, you know how like in like Act 1 where you just start and you get to the town and you get like a green level 1 skill gem that is like bound to the person, not to the account, so you like only your character can use it. You can't even put it in the stash, I believe. Do the same thing with crafting materials that you get. So you're given a tier 1 map from Doriani, and you're given the materials. So he teaches you that you can enchant these with the magic, with giving it an extra attribute, and then making it rare. Or do that progressively. It's like at first he's going to give you a map, and it's like, hey, you can make it a magic map. Here you go in. Okay, cool. Did that? All right, cool. Just so you know, you can also do this, and you can also do, like, make it even more, right? And then it's like, maybe the quest with Doriani can give you, like, a super juiced up map eventually, you know? Like, as a progression. It's like, okay, you can actually keep doing it, and then it's like, at the end of it all, when you finish all of this quests, he gives you, like, a fucking juiced up map. Maybe. You know?
Objective, here's the thing to look forward to. And something just like complete 10 tier 1 maps is not a fun objective, right? That's just like, okay, sure, I'll do that.
So I do want to clarify here that they're not really addressing the issues.
Yeah.
And they will never address the issues that a lot of people have. Just off the top of my head, utility abilities become useless. Endgame enemies are way too aggressive, fast, and spawn next to you way too quickly for you to possibly use any sort of CC or utility ability.
And by the way, they're getting asked about the magic and rare monsters in this interview, and they don't have a good answer for it. The main problem is when the rare spawns, some rares are like not a big deal. They take their time, like depends on the mob type, whatever. Some rares though, they spawn, they charge at you, they have multiple abilities on them, and you don't even know that it is a rare that is charging you. Like the only time you know is because you see minions, and maybe you can tell that there's a rare that's already on top of your ass. But some of them just fucking charge at you really fast. Plus they have haste, and they're just on top of you. What is the solution to that? just blow everything up before it even touches you. Like obviously, fucking gameplay.
So you just AoE blast enemies. Enemies do way too much damage. for defensive abilities or, you know, that sort of thing. So you can't really do that. So basically, once you get to the end game, the only thing you can really do is just blast as many AoEs as you can.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yep.
And a lot of people get really off put by that because they maybe played through the campaign with a tankier build, or they played through the campaign with a more utility build, a combo build, a CC oriented build, and they get to the end game and all you can do is AoE enemies. If you go with the CC.
Speaking of combo builds, this is the dumbest thing as well about combos. The whole point of combos is like you build combos, then you use them. As a system, you're like, okay, that's kind of cool. Gameplay wise, instead what you do is you have an ability that generates the combo. You have a proc chance that generates max combos. And the same ability that generates them is also the ability you use to use the charges. Right? So essentially what you do is you have the spirit gem, right, that can generate, let's say, frenzy. This is how you do it on a monk, right? You have the spirit gem generates frenzy. Then you have the node on the passive tree that turns frenzies into power charges, right? So then you have also a node that has a chance to give you like max out frenzy charges plus increase the amount of frenzy charges you get. Okay, so now you can have a chance to generate 4 or 5 frenzy charges, which then turn into 5 power charges, which then you use instantly at the same time, right? It's like, it's not like there's a, oh, now it turns and now you do this. No, it's like, it's all like happens in like one go, in like one button. Okay, and then they turn to power charges, and then you blow everything up. And when you blow everything up, it generates more frenzy / power charges, and then you keep blowing everything up. And this chain reaction is so stupid. Then it's like, why is there even a combo system? This makes no sense. Combo is about generating combo, using combo. If the combo you're using is generating the combo, you're not doing a combo anymore. You're just spamming one button. So whoever designed the combo system is not the same person who designed the late game where the combo system is used. This is why it is impossible for them to breach the gap between campaign and maps, because it feels like these are two different development teams with no clear vision. One game has an intention of methodical gameplay with intention of like positioning, intention of damage, intention of attack. The other one is combine everything into one button to blow everything up. It is unbelievably weirdest fucking game design I've ever seen in a game. The game doesn't know what it wants to be. And yes, PoE1 Andes like it. Good for you. Expect 10,000 max players within a year of the game being out. And then bouncing back and forth between seasons. And nobody will play PoE1 again unless they do like, you know, let's say every season is like every 4 months. So first 2 months is PoE2 season. Next 2 months is PoE1 season. Then they're going to keep bouncing them like that. Maybe then you would get, but honestly, I would say most people would just be like, I'm just playing PoE2. And then they're literally, with PoE2, they are literally killing PoE1. Which is fucking stupid, because PoE1 can be a fantastic game if they stop. Honestly, no. Leave PoE1 as it is. Fuck it. I'm not going to touch it. People like it, whatever. Don't make PoE2 into PoE1 though, because that is the dumbest thing you can do as a developer, unless you purposely are trying to kill the other game, so you stop developing it. If you're trying to kill the other game, so you stop developing it, then as you were.
Build and you open a ritual, you're going to have a real rude awakening for just how the end game is. And they never address that fact. And I do want to emphasize this as well. I don't know if they realize this. I barely played Path of Exile 1. I just want to clarify, I did back it. I got in on the original, all that stuff. I still have my original email and all that if you guys want me to prove it or whatever. So I was very much into Path of Exile 1. But I found that it differentiated way too much from Diablo 2 and seemed to be made a game entirely for people who like to min-max the game and not a game made for people who just like to kind of play through the campaign and take it slow and have a fun build, right?
Which, by the way, there is absolutely no problem with min-maxing the game. For example, so I'm gonna use a WoW example, I guess, for this, but there's like certain, or even Guild Wars 2, okay? Which Guild Wars 2 doesn't do it very well, but you know, let's assume they did, right? So you have in Guild Wars 2, you have multiple classes. Let's say you're playing a Reaper, and you also have an Elementalist, let's say Weaver, right? I believe Weaver is the more annoying one. Okay, Spell Weaver, yeah, something like that. Either way, Weaver. Okay, the rotation to do insane amount of damage consistently on a Reaper is like brain dead. Okay, there's like 4 buttons essentially, really, and auto attacks in between. That's pretty much it. Okay, 5 buttons, I guess. On something like a Weaver, the rotation is like, I don't know, like 14 buttons. If you mess up the rotation, you're kind of screwed. Like, you're going to lose a lot of DPS. But what should happen is that if you're min-maxer, let's say min-maxer, right? And like, you're putting all this effort to be a Weaver, you should be doing more DPS than, you know, if you're a perfect Weaver versus a perfect Reaper, perfect Weaver should do slightly, like substantially, but slightly more DPS than a Reaper. But that is not the case, right? I don't know how it is right now, but that, like, you would have times where like Reaper would just be top DPS and it's still so easy to use, versus like something that is hard to use, not doing as much DPS. Even if you put like all the effort in the world and you're playing it perfectly, you would still not do as much DPS. Okay? So in my opinion, there is something for, like, if you're a min-maxer, you should do more. You put in the work, you should do more. 100%. But you shouldn't do 10x more. Maybe like 1.3x more, 1.2x more, right? You should do more because you put in the effort. But like, you shouldn't be breaking the game because you're a min-maxer, because then if you're capable of breaking the game, the developers have to design the game around that build so that you are not able to break the game, which then hampers all of the other builds that are not breaking the game. It's the same problem with World of Warcraft making raids because of knowing that the players use weak auras. So now you have a chicken and the egg. What came first? The hard design, like the shitty design, or the weak auras? And in my opinion, they should just ignore weak auras so that people don't feel forced to use them, because now if you want to raid, you kind of feel forced to use them. It's not, even if they designed like not forced, it's like you feel like I should use them because of like 1 or 2 mechanics in the whole raid. So it's like, and well, if you already have it, you might as well have all of them, all of the weak auras, right? So it's like you can't pick and choose. You can't do like half and half, right? You have to design the game specifically for the average player and make sure that people who can min-max, who are way better players, cannot break the fucking game. Okay? Like, it's fine if it happens once in a while, sure. Like, but it's not like that big of a deal, especially in a seasonal game. But like, the goal is supposed to be not letting them break the game. Okay, let's keep going.
Just like to kind of play through the campaign and take it slow and have a fun build, right? And Path of Exile 2, when we looked at all the gameplay videos, and maybe I should have shown that, the developer showcase with like the Sony president and all that, you guys can probably go remember that. They talked about how you would need to combo abilities and it would be slower and all that. And I feel like that was kind of a bait and switch. I feel like it's kind of a dirty term to say and people don't like hearing that said, but I do feel like it was a bit of a bait and switch that they basically promised, guys, this is not Path of Exile 1, and then here's Path of Exile 1. But
yeah,
let's go into that real quick.
100%.
This is all me saying, to clarify, I didn't play Path of Exile 1 once all these league mechanics were added. I don't know what Breach is, I don't know what Delirium is, I don't know what rituals are, I don't know any of this stuff. In the game itself, you will not find tooltips for any of this. You will not find explanations for any of this. I didn't understand I could anoint my necklace. I didn't understand what quality was from breaches.
As far as anointing the necklace, I only found out about it because of like some dev, I think Is this Jonathan? I'm not sure. One of them was talking about the possibility in the interview, like when they had like the showcase for like 2 hours, it was like a brief moment that he talked about it, and then I was like, how the fuck do you do it? And then I saw a video. Like, I had to do so much research just to find out that this is a possibility to create a passive node on a necklace. Why is this not explained? This is what I want to show, right? It's like I have an 85 Ascendant, which, by the way, they should really bring Ascendant into this game. I really want a character that can just like be in the center and choose where they want to go. But yeah, so I have an 85 Ascendant. So I played this, I wouldn't say enough, right? It's like, what is my, it's like 130 hours compared to like PoE 2, which is like almost twice as much, right? But like, yeah, I did the maps one time, I got to 85, and I was like, this is fucking boring. When he's just fucking running maps nonstop, it's fucking boring.
Barely understood what breach rings were really doing that was unique or anything. I didn't understand the objective behind breaches. I didn't know what you were doing in them. I barely understand pretty much picking that stuff up now. I'm pretty much clear on rituals because they had them in the campaign, but a lot of these people are lost because at the end of the day, they never understood that the campaign was going to become, well, that, and also
now,
there's no...
I can only assume that they will have Delirium and Breach in the campaign, like Act 4, 5, or 6. So it would give you some introduction. I can only assume, right? Because they had the ritual in the campaign as well. So likely they would have these mechanics in the campaign. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm worried more about the design philosophy.
Like, bro, you didn't tell us what to do.
You know, where we could do that a lot better, right? Go to this place, travel here, do this exact thing, discover this, do a tower, run this breach, you know, all these things. We can have obviously way better objectives and ones that we could still design. And you're getting your passive points for each, and you're like, okay, the next thing it wants me to do is this exact thing, not just, I've completed my now it just wants me to complete tier 2 maps. I see.
So once again, they're not addressing the issue that the campaign plays one way, the end game plays a completely different way, and they're very different. It's weird to me.